join me for Kids Connect at the front. Ooh, that's fun. You want to talk about that today? Okay guys, so today we're doing things a little different. I know we always do some sort of messy activity. Today we're being nice, neat, and clean. So one for you. I know, such a tough gig. How dare I? And one for you. And one for you. So we've been working through what? Do you remember what it's called? The 10 biggie rules. So the 10 biggie rules that God lives, or, hey, nice, the 10 commandments. So some crowns for you. Hudson, I'm sure you'll dig. Read some for you. And then new friends, some for you. So what rules have we gone through so far? Can we remember? Yep, no lying. We've slept, it's been a lot. Yeah. Be good to who? Parents, yeah. Yes, and cooperate with our parents. And no being mean to everyone, good. So today we're learning what not to do. What do you think this could be about? Ricky's sticky fingers. What might I not want you to do? I'll help. Steal. We're not going to steal. God doesn't want us to steal. Okay? So today, instead of playing some really, really difficult game about stealing, we're just going to read What Happens When You Steal by my man, Ricky Sticky Fingers. Okay? So while we're doing this, Hudson, I see you already have a little man here. I want you can draw pictures throughout it. You can draw pictures of what you see. You can draw pictures of what Ricky steals, or maybe what he's stealing as we go through. Okay? Got it, team? He is going to steal something. So my name is Ricky, but lately everyone's been calling me Ricky Sticky Fingers. That's because sometimes I take stuff that doesn't belong to me. I steal. When I see something I really want, I think, hey, that could be mine. So I look both ways, I reach out my hands, and I take it. Just like that. And if I ever get caught, I just pretend that it wasn't me who took it. A quick little lie is just what I need, and lying helps me get through it. Taking things I want to have at times can be very tricky, but there's no way I can help myself because all of my fingers are sticky. Sticky fingers. A few days ago, I saw bubble gum in Marvin's desk at school. It wasn't just any bubble gum. It was my absolute favorite kind of bubble gum. It was Super Bubble Rama. And I thought, how good that gum would taste if I could just blow those big bubbles. And ever since our principal sat on a wad of gum, it ruined his pants. And so gum hasn't really been allowed at school. So I was doing Marvin a big favor by taking that gum. Was he? Probably not. I looked both ways, and when no one was looking, I reached in Marvin's desk and I took it. On my way home from school that day, that's good gum, I stopped at the corner store to buy a bottle of thick double chocolate milk. But on my way to the cooler in the back of the store, I walked by some toys, and what did I see? A package of slime wads. The gooey balls that stick to the walls when you throw them. Slime wads are cool. They're not easy to find, and I just had to have them, so they could be mine. I'd throw them at girls, and I'd make them say, icky. It happened again. My fingers got sticky. Did he steal them? Yeah. I stuffed the slime ones in my pocket. I paid for my chocolate milk, though, and I headed out the door. The next day at school, I forgot my gym shoes. So instead of playing in PE, I just sat on the ribbons. And I had to sit there and watch. And when I looked in our teacher's box, I saw Miss Rabone had stuffed all of her things in them. She keeps her clipboards, her pens, and her whistles. But she was also keeping Dominic Russo's ninja guy. Miss Rabone had told Dominic Russo that his ninja guy needed to take looked at the ninja and thought, how could it be? I needed that ninja, and he needed me. When no one was looking, my fingers got sticky, and that ninja guy made me one happy Ricky. Where is it? Do you see it? In class, Dominic's ninja guy woke up from his nap and escaped from his special box right into my pocket. When I got home from school, my mom gave me the unibrow. You know, the look when both of her eyebrows go together and she looks at me like no one could ever look at me, like she thinks I've done something wrong. Ricky, she said, today when I was doing the laundry, I found this gum in your pocket. You know we only let you chew sugarless gum. Where did you get this? Marvin gave it to me, I said. Are you sure? Yep. Oh, and Ricky, I found these slime wads in your room. Where did you get these? I found them on the way home from school. Are you sure? Yep. And then she also asked me about the ninja man that escaped during PE. She asked if I knew anything about it. I said no. Are you sure? Yep. But that night in my bed, I felt kind of bad. If my mom knew I lied, she'd have been mad. I just can't be her good little Ricky, but it isn't my fault because my fingers are sticky. The next morning, I went outside to the garage to get my bike so I could ride it to school. But my bike was gone. Mom, my bike is gone, I screamed. Oh no, little Ricky, it happened to you. Your bike has been stolen. It's so sad, but it's true. But how could this happen? Who would do this to me? Somebody thought they needed your bike, so they took it from you, even though it's not right. When kids steal from stores, the store owners get mad. The prices go up, and shoppers feel bad. When people steal things, they know it is wrong, but the bad inside wins, and the good plays along. Inside they're thinking that thing could be mine. That thing could be mine, and I'm not strong enough to say no to the crime. It felt so bad about my bike, I wanted to cry. Then I realized I had made other people feel just like me. Is that everyone you stole from? Do they look very happy? No, not at all. So I told Marvin about his gum, and I told my mom too. And she wasn't that mad at me, she even hugged me, it's true. I've made some mistakes, and she said, but I still love you, Ricky. I know it seems hard when your fingers get sticky. Now is the time to make these things right. The good inside needs you to put up a fight. So I told the store lady, and she was kind of mad at me. And then I told Marvin, and I got him some gum, and he was kind of mad at me too. And then I told Dominic Russo that his ninja guy decided to hang out of my pocket for a while, but then got homesick and wanted to come back home. Dominic was really, really mad at me, but he got over it. And then when I walked home from school, I thought about my day. The good inside me pushed the bad part away. I felt great on the inside because I'd done the right thing. Now I know that stealing is wrong, and it's mean. There might still be days when my fingers get sticky. I'll just have to tell myself, don't take that, Ricky. The end. Okay, guys, so what did we learn about stealing? What does stealing mean? Yeah, it's when you take something that doesn't belong to you. And are there times when you want something really, really bad, but you can't have it or you're not supposed to? Hudson, can you help me out? Have you ever wanted something really bad? Yeah. But is stealing ever a good thing? Nope. Nope. So what was our last rule that we learned today? That stealing is... But Batman steals? Batman really shouldn't steal. So let me take a look at your pictures, and we're going to talk about them, and I see that you guys have brought some other things to share. And then after that, we'll say a prayer and we'll get out of here. Does that sound good? Yeah, I guess that would make him a bad guy. He says that Batman steals, and so I guess sometimes that makes him a bad guy. So let's talk about what you brought today. What's this? It's Batman, and so you brought your book that you're thankful for because we've been talking about learning how to pray. So we talk about praying on our 5 fingers, and we talk about our blessings. So today, Hudson brought his Batman book, and Gwendolyn brought, who's this? A new toy she got yesterday. So we're working through blessings right now. Did anyone else bring a blessing? anyone want to say the prayer today? No? Okay. Then I think I'll say it for us. Can I have your pen? Thank you so much. Okay, pictures? You're not done. We can finish it in class. Okay, bow your heads. Dear God, we are so thankful that you let us come together each and every Sunday, and for how much you have allowed us to grow in our spirit and our faith with you. And Lord, I ask that as we continue to grow and continue to learn all of our rules and behaviors and just what it is you want us to do through you, Lord, that you will give us this grace to make mistakes and to grow in our friendship. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. Okay, guys, you want to help me?
Saul, for he dressed you in luxurious scarlet clothing, and garments decorated with gold. Oh, how the mighty heroes have fallen in battle. Jonathan lies dead in the hills. Bless the scripture reading and the message to follow.
All right. First of all, I have to say welcome to some dear, dear friends of mine. And some of them are up here from Tennessee, so I am so glad. And it's the first time I got to see their little baby. And so they are here visiting today, Nick and Jessica, and some good friends from Monette. And so I'm happy that they made the trip and they're up here today. So thank you guys for coming. Well, the last few weeks, I've been talking about God at work, and we heard a big testimony last week about God at work and how God has worked in our lives. And so I've talked about He calls us, and He wants us to listen for that voice. And then when we listen for that voice, He will lead us to where we need to go. He will tell us what we need to do. And so today I'm going to be talking about God at work again. And even though we go through some horrible things at different times, He still saves us. God saves, regardless of what we go through. He calls us, He answers us, He leads us, and He wants us to follow Him. And we all have different experiences in our life, different losses in our life. Sometimes it's a loved one and we just can't hardly stand it. Sometimes it's our financial security that we have lost. Sometimes it's our homes, whatever it is. We lose stuff in life and it's hard. And some of those things are so out of our control that we have no control over them. It's how we respond to them that matters. That's where the difference is. Well, today's scripture was talking about David that had been running from Saul for years because he was trying to kill him. And King Saul was killed in battle. But more than that, David's best friend, Jonathan, which was the son of the king, was killed as well. And David could have responded in so many different ways on that. He could have been jumping for joy because now he was king. He had been anointed king 15 years prior to that. And he could have been so excited because now he was the king, but he wasn't. He wasn't. He handled it very graceful. They called it he lamented. We don't use that word anymore. But he cried out to God for that grace. Well, what I'm talking about today is sometimes through those losses, we need to be listening for the voice of God. You know, many of you have either read about or was in that time period of Franklin D. Roosevelt when he was president. I know not most of you, but he was president of the United States. And it tells us that he got so tired of these White House affairs and everybody having to be cordial to him and saying nice things to him, because it was always something different. So he was going to do a test one time to see if they really were listening to him. And so as all the dignitaries started filing through the line, he came up with this phrase that said, "I murdered my grandmother this morning." And everybody came through and said, "That's good, that's good." And they went on in. Well, one dignitary at the end finally came in, and Franklin Roosevelt, he made that comment, and the dignitary looked at him and he said, "She probably deserved it." He was listening. But people, we just don't listen very well sometimes. And when it comes to the voice of God, we don't listen most of the time, because it's hard to hear that voice when we don't see him in front of us. But he talks to us. It's not that he's not speaking, it's that we're not listening. We're not listening. Well, there was another character in the Bible that had a real hard time with that as well, and his name was Job. Most of us have heard about Job. He went through everything, and he went through it in one day. And when they think our lives are bad, just read Job, because it happened in one day. He had everything going for him. He was the wealthiest man in the Middle East. He had everything. He had a business that was flourishing. He had a family. He had home. He had camels and donkeys. He had it all. And life was good. Life was so good. But then, in one day, everything changed. The first thing that happened was that a messenger came to tell him that someone had stolen all his donkeys. Now, that may not seem much to us, but for Job, that was a huge deal. They had taken all of his donkeys, and then all at once he saw another messenger come up. Somebody had taken all his sheep. And then he learned that there was a fire, and his servants were all killed. Well, then pretty soon another messenger was coming up. I would have got tired of seeing the messenger. But another messenger came up, and they told him that they had stolen all his camels. Again, the same day. And he had lost his empire. But then, finally, another messenger came up, and his oldest son was having a party. And all of his children were at this home. And the roof caved in, and all of his kids were killed. Job lost everything. We could say he was the founder of Hard Knocks, because he really was. He didn't even have time to call his insurance agent, and he became infected with leprosy. Again, things just kept happening. And his wife, finally, which I don't know that I could have blamed her, said, "Curse God and die." Everything was lost. We can understand why she felt that way. Everything was gone, but Job could not do that. And then if you remember the story of Job, he had 4 friends. We don't want friends like his friends. But he had 4 friends that came to him, and every single one of them in the first 23 chapters of Job spent their time telling him on why everything happened to him and why it was his fault. And in the next 4 chapters, Job was telling his friends all about God and who God was. And finally, God got a word in edgewise. Before, he couldn't get Job to listen to him. And finally, Job heard from him. And he started asking Job some questions about who Job was. Were you here when the foundations of the earth were laid? Were you here when I raised the mountains up? Were you here when I created light? Were you here when I created the dark? And finally, Job was speechless. He had no answers. He had finally heard God. You see, Job knew about God, but he didn't know God. And he finally heard him speak. You see, what happens is God speaks to us through the storms in our lives. That's when he speaks to us. It's in those storms when we can't take anything else that we finally get to a point that we hear from God. Because we have to be silent to do that. You know, Max Lucado, he's one of my favorite authors. He wrote a book. And he started that conversation asking God some questions. And he says, why do you love your children? Heaven only knows how much pain we brought you. Why do you tolerate us? You give us breath, and we breathe, but we don't thank you. We complain about the weather, and we bicker about all of our toys. And not a second passes when someone somewhere uses your name in vain. Most of the time they use it when they hammer their thumb, or when an umpire at a game calls the wrong call. You fill the world with food, but yet people are starving. You keep the earth from tilting, but we accuse you of not caring about us. You give us blue skies and we want rain. We ask you for rain, and then we complain because we don't see the sun. We give more applause and cheers at a ball game than we do in church. Why do you love your children? We pollute the earth that you just loan us. We mistreat the bodies that you gave us. And we ignore the word you sent us. And we killed the Son who came for us. We're spoiled babies who take what we want, we kick and we pout. And you have every reason to abandon us. But he doesn't. He doesn't. He's patient and he's loving. And he wants us to come to a place to know who he is. And when we get to that place, that's when we'll hear him. It's through the storms in our lives. We may know about God. Do we really know him? You see, everything had suddenly changed for Job, and he had to stop and listen. And in the end, God gave Job more than he had ever dreamed. He caused a blessing to come out of everything that had happened to him. He wants to do the same thing for us. Difficult days demand difficult decisions of faith. What he wants us to do is when we have those storms that hit our lives, he wants us to be still. He wants us to listen for him. And he'll heal us in that storm. David knew that's what he needed. And he wrote in 37:7 in Psalms, "Be still in the presence of the Lord and wait patiently for him to act." Many of you here knew Dan's dad. And when he passed away, it was suddenly. It was suddenly. And it was a shock. Now, Dan's dad, I was closer to him than I was my own father. He was a great man. He really was. And when he retired, I even hired him as a contract employee to do data entry for me when I was working at the hospital in Cassville. So he had something to do. And then he would go back and forth with me. I'd pick him up here in Aurora, and we would go back and forth together to Springfield to pick up supplies for the hospital. Just to be together. And so when he passed away, it broke my heart. It broke my heart. But I'm a fixer. And so I was taking care of Dan's mom. And we did funeral arrangements and all those things you have to do when things happen suddenly. And so you don't take the time to just stop. And I'll never forget, after the service was over, which we had here, but after the service was over, everybody had went back home, and I was finally by myself at the house. That it hit me. What had happened. And the loss. And I remember breaking down right there in my kitchen floor and crying out to God, why? And this is what I heard God tell me in that time. Pass on what He blessed you with. That's the blessing that you can take out of this. Pass on what He blessed you with. I'm telling you, even in the storms, our God is an amazing God. Our God can do an amazing job. But we have to be still, and we have to listen. And we have to hear Him, because He restores us in that storm. That's what He does. We may think we know God, but until we go through a storm, do we really know Him? Because that's when our faith is tested. And that's when we know what we truly believe in. God healed Job, and God healed David, and God will heal each and every one of us. He will save us if we will let Him. We just have to be willing to be quiet and to listen through all those storms that come our way. Amen.
Will you stand for our closing hymn? Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. Let there be peace on earth, the peace that was meant to be, with God our Creator, children all are we. Let us walk with each other in perfect harmony. Let this begin with me. Let this this be the moment now. With every step I take, let this be my solemn vow, to take each moment and live each moment in peace eternally. Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me.
As you leave this place today, it's a busy weekend, holiday weekend. Drive careful, please. Go, because I want to enjoy my weekend. I don't want to go see you in the hospital. So, you know, but let me know if something does happen. Know that you're an instrument that God can use. Regardless of what you're going through, you can still be an instrument. And so God be with you as you leave this place and bring you back next week. Amen.